Japan is an amazing country. As long as you stay out of Akihabara. Seriously, that place scares the shit out of me. Osaka's where it's at. That city is known for its cuisine and another thing. And with the stuff that place has on offer, you can get lost in the city for quite a while. But if you take a not so long train journey out of the city, you'll find yourself in the Mie Prefecture. Nestled in that region is the city of Suzuka, which of course is home to one of the best racetracks in the world. The Suzuka International Racing Course is one of the more prominent venues on the Formula 1 calendar, and the history that comes with this makes it a must-have on the schedule. Having attended the venue a couple of years ago, this circuit is up there with Bathurst in terms of undulation, narrowness, and sheer awesomeness. This circuit has played host to the Japanese Grand Prix from 1987 to the present day. Yeah, kind of. But you see, in 2007 and 2008, the Japanese Grand Prix was not held at Suzuka, and it wasn't even the first circuit to host a national race. Instead, that circuit can be found in the foothills of the nation's most iconic mountain, and a track which Formula 1 should seriously consider going back to. So, the track in question is called Fuji Speedway, named as such because it's pretty close to Mount Fuji. Sure, there are other things that are closer to the track than Mount Fuji, but the name cola vending machine in a dank street corner in Gotemba Speedway isn't quite as catchy as the former. But anyway, Fuji Speedway was conceived back in June 1964, but it wasn't initially planned for Formula 1. And to further elaborate on this, I have drafted in someone who knows a bit more about this stuff than I do.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy Darian Gilliam, aka Black Flags Matter, and thank you so much to Josh for having me on this video. The origins of Fuji Speedway are extremely interesting considering the fact that NASCAR had a part in starting the track up. Basically what happened was NASCAR almost entered Asia 50 years ago as an attempt that led to the construction of Fuji Speedway. They had partnered with several Japanese officials to assist in the creating of stock car racing in Japan. The series was going to be called Nippon NASCAR, and it was set to debut sometime in the late 1960s. The series news might have been a minor storyline heading into the 1964 Daytona 500, but a big enough one to invite Miss Japan herself to present Richard Petty with his Daytona 500 trophy, and even that trophy was inscribed in Japanese. The plans were to build a 2.5-mile high-banked superspeedway at the base of Mount Fuji. Construction on the superspeedway began in early June, and news of groundbreaking was reported in the pages of the New York Times and Sports Illustrated. Unfortunately, that would be the peak of this entire project. For the track in the series, the money simply ran out. The only thing to come out of this was one high-banked Daytona-style turn that was constructed before the cash ran out. Even as a diehard NASCAR fan, I had absolutely no idea that NASCAR was seriously trying to do a legit stock car series in Japan. The one NASCAR turn was eventually incorporated into Fuji Speedway, but proved too dangerous after several drivers were killed. 1974 was the last year the turn was ever a part of the track.
And I mean, there's good reason they never used it for any longer. The only thing stopping them from meeting their maker was a layer of Armco, which was seriously the plastic bag condom of the racing world. By 1974, the safety, or kind of lack of it, prompted a revision in track design. Namely, a hairpin was implemented at the end of the main straight, and this would prove vital toward the circuit securing the Japanese Grand Prix for 1976, which was set as the finale for that season, and saw the infamous battle between Niki Lauda and James Hunt conclude with Hunt taking the title after Lauda withdrew from the boat race. The live television deal also saw worldwide recognition for Formula 1 and the Fuji circuit. The Grand Prix circus would return a year later, although it was met with tragedy following an accident between Gilles Villeneuve and Ronnie Peterson, which saw 2 people killed trackside. Formula 1 would not return in 1978, not just to Fuji, but to Japan as a whole, and the Japanese Grand Prix would not be held again until 1987 when Suzuka entered the fray. Over the years, Fuji Speedway was kept in relatively good stead, but safety concerns began to arise by the late 1990s. In response to this, Toyota had bought the circuit from Mitsubishi and immediately announced plans to bring the circuit up to Formula 1 standards. This of course meant they were looking to get the Grand Prix back to the foothills of Mount Fuji, and would most likely have meant depriving Suzuka of its marquee event. Upon reflection, Toyota realized this and thought, And so, to bring the circuit up to Formula 1 standards, they employed the services of world-renowned track butcher Herman Tilke. And by 2003, things began to take shape. By the time it was 2005, the circuit was reopened, and oh boy, were there changes. Apart from the main straight, the vast majority of the circuit was reprofiled in some way, shape or form. So what we got was something that resembled the original circuit, but shared little of the original groundworks. Sounds kinda sad, and some purists would point out that they ruined the circuit, and that when Formula 1 returned to the venue, it was a god-awful place to race. Well, slow down on that one, Chief, because there are a few people that would dispute that, and I'm about to go into bat for these guys. So anyway, the folks who ran Fuji Speedway managed to convince Bernie and his miscreants to say kakite no to Suzuka and head over to their neck of the woods. For most people, this was a big mistake. And actually, I don't blame people for thinking that way. Suzuka is a fantastic circuit by all accounts. But not when it comes to racing. I mean, it really doesn't do too much for open wheelers. At least, not ones that require thick track width. Nevertheless, 2007 would mark the circuit's return to the Formula 1 schedule, and luckily for them, there was a title battle at hand between Alonso, Hamilton, and... The Grand Prix took place in extremely wet conditions that even caught Alonso out. Yes, even on this occasion, things were too wet for Alonso. That sounded really wrong, didn't it? Having said that, the race was actually pretty decent with some battles up and down the field and some passing, which, you know, was a nice change given the circuit they raced on didn't really, but it was a decent showing nonetheless. 2008 also saw a good race, let down only by some interesting calls by the steward. Despite this, 2008 would be the last time the race was held at Fuji Speedway, and it would be announced there'll be an alternating schedule with Suzuka. However, it would end up going to Suzuka full time, with Fuji's F1 aspirations dead in the water. I mean, this may have had something to do with Toyota pulling out of the sport, because generally they like one-sided competition when it's curved in their favour. But irrespective, the event at Fuji was plagued with poor ticket sales, shitty weather, and accessibility, which wasn't very good at being accessibility. Some of the seats had obstructed views. Basic meals would cost upwards of 10,000 yen at the circuit, and there was the alleged bias from Toyota with regards to what flag you could fly around. If it was a Toyota flag, wave it around as you may please. If it were anything else, you'll find out just how fast Toyota employees could break all 10 of your fingers. For the 2008 race, the organisers realised the issues at hand and responded by restricting the attendance from 140,000 spectators a day to 110,000. But even with this reduction in numbers, getting people to and fro the circuit was a pain in the rectum. Back in 2007, they had attempted to carry 100,000 people to the circuit via shuttle bus, which was a good idea in the mind of the idiot who thought of it. When all was said and done, some spectators were forced to stay at the circuit until 9 PM in the evening, and some people would not arrive at the circuit until the green flag had already dropped for the race. Refunds were issued, while others took legal action. In a very basic sense, Fuji's return to the Formula 1 schedule was a total freaking disaster, dogged down by a variety of issues which, frankly, shouldn't have been issues. To this day, Formula 1 has not returned to the venue, and the Grand Prix has instead remained at Suzuka. So, why should Formula 1 go back to Fuji if it was such a problem child? The answer is simple. Racing. I know it sounds like a strange response, but let me put it to you this way. For today's cars, a race in Suzuka isn't terribly exciting, as much as it pains me to say. The nature of the circuit doesn't really allow for it very often. Fuji, meanwhile, is a track which would suit the current crop of cars better, which, in turn, would more than likely throw on a better race than what Suzuka would. Having said that, Suzuka does have that theme park, and the history, and great vantage points, and dragonflies. Yeah, nah, this video is pointless, wasn't it? Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to like this video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're awesome, and always remember, keep it respectful, be wholesome, don't be a menace, and as always, I'll see you all later.